Astrobiologist Milton Wainwright claims that his team of researchers just found a tiny metal sphere in the Earth's stratosphere that's oozing a gooey substance, and is offering up the theory that aliens may have sent it to propagate life on Earth. What the hell do you make of this discovery?
It could be BS. I mean, you really have to talk to some people who actually understand the data and what the images might or might not represent, or what the particle might. I mean, I think you have to get a lot of different opinions when it comes to these things. And sometimes people like to say things because they know that someone like you will bring it up on television, or someone will click on it or get a lot of Twitter hits. I would be skeptical. But on the other hand, I think it is entirely possible that a race could plan something like that in the future, if not the human race. I don't think it's improbable at all if we discover that one of these various planets that they've discovered, there's like hundreds, thousands of them now. And if we could find one that's in that Goldilocks zone, and we found out that there was, in fact, no life on it, I don't think it's improbable at all that they would use that thing as some sort of a terrarium or a zoo in the sky and send some genetic material its way and, you know, see what happens. I don't even think people would think that was unethical. If we found out that there was no intelligent life, mammalian life, insect life, lizards, nothing but plants on this one particular planet, I think it's very probable that we would mess around and send something over there just to see, as an experiment, what happened.
Yeah, and speaking of kind of transporting life from one planet to the next, I mean, in Neil deGrasse Tyson's epic series Cosmos, he talks about how asteroids could have been the transportation system for the building blocks of life, not only on Earth, but from Earth to other planets and other galaxies, and kind of circling all back around. Do you agree with the theory, considering how microbes have been found here on Earth that can survive space radiation?
Well, as a confirmed moron, whenever Neil deGrasse Tyson says anything, I automatically agree with him.
Right,
so,
exactly.
Yeah, that term, though, panspermia, has been around for a while, or that theory. And it makes sense. I mean, there's parts of the moon in Antarctica. There's parts of other planets that planets get hit with asteroids, pieces break off, pieces go into orbit, pieces somehow or another make it to us. That kind of stuff happens in the universe. I mean, I had a guy on my podcast recently. His name is Randall Carlson, and he's an expert in these impact disaster scenarios, like how many different times the Earth has been hit, the extinction events like the one that hit the Yucatan and killed the dinosaurs. Like, there's chunks of rock and stuff in space that's constantly hitting other planets. Pieces break off, and that is a possible transportation vehicle for life. In a way, it's like nature's own spaceship. It literally can bring the building blocks, amino acids, and all sorts of building blocks of life to other planets, including water. I mean, I've read that they believe that most of the water that came on Earth, or that's on Earth right now, has probably come from, like, comet collisions.
There's this huge debate raging, of course, on Earth right now, whether aliens have tried to contact us. DeGrasse Tyson makes the point that they very well could have been trying to send us messages throughout the universe for millions and millions of years, but humanity on Earth, of course, only has the technology to read them for a very small blip of time. I mean, only 100 years or so. Joe, why do you think so many people are convinced that aliens have already visited Earth and there's an international conspiracy to cover it up?
Because it's sexy.
Yeah.
It's exciting. It's exciting to think that Daddy's out there waiting to tell us what's wrong with the world. I mean, that's what aliens are. Essentially, it's the atheist God. I mean, a lot of people that are really, really into aliens are also atheists. And I think we as tribal beings, we as these, at one point in time, we were ancient, you know, when we were hominids, primates, we had this alpha male structure where there was always a leader. And that one leader today is essentially the president, right? I mean, we have this structure where we have this one leader. And I think when we know that everybody is kind of clueless, at a certain point in time in your life especially, you start looking at just the overall big picture of the infinite universe and the fact that you have a finite life and you're trying to accumulate as much understanding about what this is all about as you can while you're here for 90 whatever years if you're lucky, and that freaks us out. And we would like to think that someone out there is more advanced and is ahead of us, like a daddy, that can tell us what's wrong and what's going on. And that, I think, there's like an instinctual desire to look for that alpha. And I think in a lot of intelligent people, that is aliens. That is some advanced culture that has figured out how to bypass all the monkey nonsense that we're currently involved with war and famine and all the different craziness, violence, and all the horrible things, drug addiction, that this culture has moved past that and has gone to this new place, and they could help us. They could help us pull ourselves out of this primordial muck that we find ourselves in right now.
The primordial ooze.
So I think it's an instinct. It's an instinctive inclination to think that there's something out there. And then there's also the more intelligent people you talk to, the more they start talking about the vastness of what is actually the term infinity, and that it's not just likely that there's other life out there, but it's very, very probable. In fact, they believe that the universe is so huge that what infinity really represents is, Brian Cox tried to explain this to me when he was on my podcast, and I kind of get it, but what it means is that not only is there another Abby Martin, but there's another me talking to another Abby Martin. We've said the exact same things an infinite number of times. Like, there's no, every pause, that I just did, all that has been replicated to the nanosecond an infinite number of times throughout the cosmos. That's how big this thing really is. So it's not a matter of whether or not there are aliens out there. You're out there. I'm out there, and we're aliens.
Wow.
Yeah, and there's an infinite number of us. So there is life. It might not be something other than us, though. That's the weird thing. It is possible. I mean, it's not probable, but because everything that is possible in an infinite universe is probably, it probably exists. But it is possible that this is as good as it gets, and that where we are right now is as smart as any life form has ever achieved. That is possible too. And that's terrifying to us because we know we're idiots. We look at our behavior, we look at our wars, we look at the deficit and crime, and we look at the financial market and speculations and the fact that it's all stock market trades are being run by algorithms. It's chaos. It's craziness. And we hope there's someone better. We hope that we see the flaws in our own system, and we hope that someone out there in the cosmos has nailed it. But it's possible that the reason why we have advanced so much more, we have so much more technological ability than the other animals that are on this planet, it might just be because we're aware of this thing. We're aware of how bad we are. We're aware of how much potential we have, and we look towards an alien or a god or something as being some divine being that has conquered all the things that hold us from achieving our true potential. People get really hooked on this idea that it's definitely happened and that we've been contacted, and then they obsess on it. Mm-hmm. When you really look at the evidence, and I've really looked at as much of the evidence as I could get a hold of in a week or so. I mean, obviously there's people that have done way more research than me. But when we did that sci-fi show, Joe Rogan Questions Everything, and we started talking to people that have had alien encounters and alien abductions, boy, a lot of it seems like bull. A lot of it, like a huge percentage. A lot of it seems like convenient memories that have in time, like you take your memory and in time you sort of add things to it and tweak it around, and then it becomes like a real memory to you. But the reality of what you actually saw in comparison to the reality of the actual event that you're recanting over and over again for decades is probably quite a bit different.
Right. I mean, that's the problem is like people like Dr. Stephen Greer, the Disclosure Project's really interesting, and there's a lot of like high-level, politicians and government officials who have seen UFOs. But then again, we're living in the drone age, and who knows what technology existed 50 years ago that we didn't know about. Yeah. It's just really, really interesting.
There's a lot of woo.
Yeah.
There's a lot of woo going on with that. That's a big part of that stuff. It's sexy to think that the aliens have visited us, but it's also possible that they never have. It's also possible that all these things that you see that are unidentified, that all of them are of human creation. It's possible that aliens, if they are smart enough to get here, they're also smart enough to be invisible. I mean, they could be watching this right now, standing right here, laughing at us. Like, these idiots think we're going to fly around on a plate. Like, we're right here, dude. We travel back and forth whenever we want, and we don't exist in a physical form. So you can't see us. You don't have the senses to detect us. I mean, it's incredibly possible that if you're dealing with multiple dimensions that we don't understand, like if you listen to string theorists, They're talking about 11 to 15 possible dimensions. We're only capable of seeing a few of those. So it is possible that some advanced being that exists in these other dimensions, this is where it gets really crazy, might not just be able to come visit us, but they might be here all the time, and we just can't detect them because we simply don't have the ability. Just like if you didn't have a nose, you wouldn't be able to detect smells. Like you wouldn't know that smells were a real thing. You would have no idea. If you had no sense of smell, you would have no idea that things smell different, that leather smells different than cheeseburgers. All of this is a normal, everyday thing to a human being. But it's only normal because it's been a part of our life our entire lives. If it never existed, the concept of smell would be completely alien. Well, it's quite possible that there's a bunch of different dimensions all around us all the time that are like that in a way. And if there are aliens that exist in these dimensions, they come to visit us, how the f would we know? We would have no idea.
Right.
We're talking about possibilities. We're talking about, I just don't think they're going to come in like spaceships with big silver Klaatu helmets on. It seems goofy. The gray head, the big black eyes. It seems so archetypal that I smell and I might be wrong. I mean, it's very possible that people have come, but it's also possible that people are having crazy dreams, and then they convince themselves that they're real, and then they believe that there's aliens that are coming to visit them, and that makes them more interesting than everybody else. It makes them special. Someone has finally recognized that they're special. Right.
I mean, what about everyone just having kind of a collective DMT kind of release in their brain and having these alien encounters? I mean, I don't know. I don't know, because it is weird how everyone kind of has the same contact, and the same story. And who are we to say that your interpretive experience of reality is false? Then again, is it a psychedelic experience? I don't really know. But of course we have humans.
It could be even crazier than that. I'm sorry. It could be even crazier than that. It could be both. It could be just a dream, but that dream could in fact be a real experience. Like you're actually making contact with alien life forms. It could be that there are passages when you are dreaming, when you're having this deep REM sleep, where you achieve some sort of an entrance into these potential other dimensions. That could be a part of the dream state. So when people have these crazy abduction experiences while they're sleeping, and they go on spaceships and they communicate with aliens that explain what's wrong with the nature of man and how to fix it and how to fix the world, stop polluting and how to clean up your environment, it is possible that's really happening too. The idea of a dream, we look at the idea of a dream like, oh, it's just a dream. But what does that really mean? We don't exactly know what the f a dream is. We know that we look forward to sleeping. We know that we shut off every night with no hesitation. No one's scared to go to sleep. Everyone's scared to die, but no one's scared to go to sleep. And when you shut off and you lose control and you have these crazy memories of these wild things that happen to you in your dream, it's quite possible that what that is just a non-physical reality that you're dipping your consciousness into. And it might not be something you could put on a scale or hit with a hammer, but it's quite possible that like psychedelic trips, like ayahuasca experiences or DMT experiences, those are all based on normal human neurochemistry that exists in your brain. And they believe exists during heavy REM sleep. And they believe, and there's some evidence that points to it now because of Rick Strassman's work with the Cottonwood Research Group, where they've isolated the pineal gland as being an actual producing element or agent of DMT. Like your pineal gland for a long time was just speculative, but now they've proven, at least in rats, that your pineal gland actually produces this incredibly potent psychedelic chemical. So it's possible that much like psychedelic experiences feel real, dreams, although it's obviously you're not really running from Godzilla on a skateboard with your cousin Mike, but when you're having this dream about that, you might be entering into this non-physical experience that is potentially something that is really taking place, not just with you, but with other people. You can have collective dreams on psychedelic chemicals. Insane. It's possible that we just don't know how to tune into whatever that might be. Or it's possible I smoke way too much weed, and this is all crazy talk. That's possible, too.
I wanted to ask you, I mean, humans are now trying to colonize other planets themselves. 100 people were just selected as finalists to be the first 24 individuals to live on Mars with the Mars One reality show project. Experts are saying that among other technical difficulties that could kill these people, the colonists could easily starve to death. Joe, what does it say about our society that first there's thousands of contestants that are signed up to basically die on Mars for our entertainment, and it will probably be the highest rated show in history?
Yeah, if we could just get like the Beverly Hills Housewives to get in one of those Mars things and send that out there, then it would be the highest rated show. They're just pulling their hair in space. I think it's ridiculous. We're in space. I think if you want to observe space, essentially, we are on a convertible in infinity. And if you really want to be the first guy to go to Mars, I mean, yeah, go for it, man. But what we're really understanding when you're looking at the vast nature of the universe, we're in space whether we like it or not. We are on a spaceship. It's a planet. It's spinning 1,000 miles an hour. It's a spaceship. And the idea of going to a spaceship where there's no air, there's no restaurants, there's no movies. It's fucking stupid. I think it's interesting to visit these things with robots, but I think to be the person that goes and dies on Mars, and how many people are going to be with you? I mean, can you choose those people? If you had to pick 20 people and live with them for the rest of your life, are you really confident about that? I'm not. People go crazy. They get older, they get nutty. Who the wants to be with the same people, whatever the number is, 20 or 30 people, forever, until your body stops working? I think that's a terrible idea. I'll watch, though, if they do
yeah,
it.
Exactly.
I will be the first person to DVR it. I'm tuned in 100%. The benefit is, look, if it gets people excited about space exploration, and if the show becomes like super successful and it ignites a passion in people to start, I mean, essentially, our space program is, a lot of it is based in the private sector now. You know, you're hearing about all these private companies that are launching satellites, and they're talking about doing the Virgin ship, which unfortunately they had that disaster recently. But those types of things, any event, gets people excited about space exploration. And I think that's what's great about it. Whether it's a good idea or not, that's up to debate. I don't think it's a good idea. I don't want to go to Mars.
Right.
But for some people, they don't like it here. They want off the planet. I get it. We're all different. I wouldn't stop them, and I certainly will watch. But what's exciting about it ultimately is that it gets the same thing that's exciting about Cosmos. Fox put Cosmos on. I mean, it's this amazing, educational, enlightening, enriching, and entertaining show, hosted by one, in my opinion, Neil deGrasse Tyson is one of the most important people in our culture, in life. He's so important for illuminating to the average person how fascinating and fantastic the universe we live in really is. So when you have something like the Mars trip, or even the Virgin 1 disaster, even though it didn't work out so well in the particular prototype they're using, it's exciting because it gets people interested in the reality of space, and the reality of the cosmos, and in science.
Yeah, absolutely. And to wrap it up, we have about a minute left, but I mean, you've tackled so many interesting theories on your show, like psychic ability as well. What have you discovered about science's ability to answer unexplained phenomenon like that?
Well, I think what we're seeing is science is slowly trying to put together a picture of what's possible. And what's important about things like science is science measures everything and can show you what can be measured and what can't be measured. And when you get things like psychic phenomena, man, there's a lot of bullshit out there in the world. And when you have things like the ability to monitor brain waves and the various ways that they have of using fMRI and all these different methods of detecting where the activity in the brain is going on, we're slowly getting a better understanding of what's possible. But there's always going to be charlatans. And where science comes in, what's really important is when someone comes along and they say, hey, I can read minds, I can predict the future, we can go, okay, we'll prove it, and we'll measure that. Prove it, we'll write that down. Let's show us in a test. Show us over and over again in an objective observation of what you're doing, that we can see your results over and over again, that you can replicate this. This is a real thing. And if it's not, it either could be or it could be something that happens on such a rare occurrence. Like the possibility of synchronicity, the possibility of psychic thoughts and premonitions, I don't disprove them. But I am very skeptical of people who say they can replicate it on a regular basis.
Right.
It might very well be that these ideas that we have about psychics, psychic energy, premonitions, that they're an emerging possibility. And that right now our little monkey brains aren't quite capable of doing what they're going to be capable of doing 1,000 years from now.
Exactly.
And these emerging possibilities, it might very well be what psychic energy is. It might very well be what people who, when you're thinking about someone, they call you, you're like, whoa, I haven't talked to this dude in a year, and he just calls me the moment I'm thinking about him. A lot of people want to brush that off and say that it's just coincidence, and it's very possible they're right. But it's also very possible that there are unique instances where there is some sort of a connection through space and time and the dimensions we live, and somehow or another your thoughts reach me without a device. That your energy, with the essence of what I consider Abby Martin, that you reach me somehow. And then I think about you and you call me or I call you, and that's an emerging possibility.
Totally.
And I don't think that's measured yet, though. See, I think most of, if you look at like the James Randi work, and Penn Jillette is big on this stuff, he believes that they're all bullshit artists, that all these psychics, they're using really advanced carny tricks. And that, well, you know, when you go to meet someone and they tell you that your future, and, you know, they're taking guesses. That's essentially his idea about it. And that's possible, too.
Joe, amazing. Always so enlightening to hear you. Everyone check out the Joe Rogan Experience podcast. Joe Rogan, awesome to have you on.
And if you want to see what Abby Martin's really like, check out the podcast with me, because Abby cuts loose. You're tied down by television, young woman. That theory. And it makes sense. I mean, there's parts of the moon in Antarctica. There's parts of other planets that planets get hit with asteroids, pieces break off, pieces go into orbit, pieces somehow or another make it to us. That kind of stuff happens in the universe. I mean, I had a guy on my podcast recently. His name is Randall Carlson, and he's an expert in these impact disaster scenarios, like how many different times the Earth has been hit, the extinction events like the one that hit the Yucatan and killed the dinosaurs. Like, there's chunks of rock and stuff in space that's constantly hitting other planets. Pieces break off, and that is a possible transportation vehicle for life. In a way, it's like nature's own spaceship.
Astrobiologist Milton Wainwright claims that his team of researchers just found a tiny metal sphere in the Earth's stratosphere that's oozing a gooey substance, and is offering up the theory that aliens may have sent it to propagate life on Earth. What the hell do you make of this discovery?
It could be BS. I mean, you really have to talk to some people who actually understand the data and what the images might or might not represent, or what the particle might. I mean, I think you have to get a lot of different opinions when it comes to these things. And sometimes people like to say things because they know that someone like you will bring it up on television, or someone will click on it or get a lot of Twitter, like live lizards, nothing but plants on this one particular planet. I think it's very probable that we would mess around and send something over there just to see, as an experiment, what happened.
Yeah, and speaking of kind of transporting life from one planet to the next, I mean, in Neil deGrasse Tyson's epic series Cosmos, he talks about how asteroids could have been the transportation system for the building blocks of life, not only on Earth, but from Earth to other planets and other galaxies, and kind of circling all back around. Do you agree with the theory, considering how microbes have been found here on Earth that can survive space radiation?
Well, as a confirmed moron, whenever Neil deGrasse Tyson says anything, I automatically agree with him.
Right,
so,
exactly.
Yeah, that term, though, panspermia, has been around for a while, or that it literally can bring the building blocks, amino acids, and all sorts of building blocks of life to other planets, including water. I mean, I've read that they believe that most of the water that came on Earth, or that's on Earth right now, has probably come from, like, comet collisions.
There's this huge debate raging, of course, on Earth right now, whether aliens have tried to contact us. deGrasse Tyson makes the point that they very well could have been trying to send us messages throughout the universe for millions and millions of years, but humanity on Earth, of course, only has the technology to read them for a very small blip of time. I mean, only 100 years or so. Joe, why do you think so many people are convinced that aliens have already visited Earth and there's an international conspiracy to cover it up?
Because it's sexy.
Yeah.
It's exciting. It's exciting that it hits. I would be skeptical. But on the other hand, I think it is entirely possible that a race could plan something like that in the future, if not the human race. I don't think it's improbable at all if we discover that one of these various planets that they've discovered, there's like hundreds, thousands of them now. And if we could find one that's in that Goldilocks zone, and we found out that there was, in fact, no life on it, I don't think it's improbable at all that they would use that thing as some sort of a terrarium or a zoo in the sky and send some genetic material its way and, you know, see what happens. I don't even think people would think that was unethical. If we found out that there was no intelligent life, mammalian life,